You move to the better zip code for the schools, lease the safe luxury SUV, and suddenly your massive monthly take-home pay vanishes before the 15th of the month. You aren't buying yachts or flying private, but you are quietly bleeding out just to maintain the baseline executive family lifestyle. That's not a spending problem. That's a structural one. And the executives bleeding the hardest are the ones who genuinely believe every single dollar they're spending is justified. Here's the diagnostic reality nobody in your professional circle will say out loud. The status traps decimating six-figure liquidity in 2026 don't look like Ferraris. They look like a $42,000 annual private school tuition that every family in your school district treats as the minimum responsible parenting decision. They look like the $1,800 monthly lease on a three-row luxury SUV because the alternative communicates the wrong signal in the carpool line. They look like the $18,000 annual country club membership that isn't optional. It's where your firm's senior partners golf on Saturdays, and your absence is noticed. None of these feel like indulgences. That's the architecture of the trap. This is what behavioral economists call baseline creep, but in HCOL zip codes, it operates at an entirely different velocity. It doesn't creep. It locks in. And once it locks in, your lifestyle has a fixed overhead structure that rivals a small business, with none of the tax architecture to offset it. Let's be precise about what this actually costs a dual-earning executive household pulling $400,000 annually in a major metropolitan market. After federal income tax, state income tax in a high-tax state, and FICA, your effective net take-home is approximately $230,000 to $245,000 annually, or roughly $19,000 to $20,000 per month. That number feels substantial until you map it against the three silent upgrades we are about to dissect. The first upgrade: the school district premium. You bought in the right zip code. The mortgage delta, the premium above a comparable home in the adjacent district, runs between $400,000 and $700,000 in most HCOL metros. At a 7% 30-year fixed rate, that premium costs you roughly $2,700 to $4,700 in additional monthly principal and interest. You justify this because it avoids private school tuition. Except it doesn't. The social architecture of affluent public districts generates its own parallel private economy. Supplemental enrichment programs, elite travel sports, SAT prep at $300 per hour, school foundation donations framed as community investment. You didn't escape the private school economy, you paid the real estate premium to access its public school equivalent. This is what I call the location liability loop. You pay for the address. The address delivers a social ecosystem. The social ecosystem has its own mandatory spending floor. The floor rises every year invisibly, incrementally, and with complete social enforcement. And here's what makes it structurally lethal. The spending floor inside that ecosystem isn't static. It adjusts upward in real time, calibrated to the collective income trajectory of your neighbors. You aren't keeping up with the Joneses. You are keeping up with a socioeconomic cohort whose baseline is accelerating faster than your compensation. The second upgrade: the signaling vehicle. The luxury SUV lease isn't vanity. You've rationalized it fully: safety ratings, reliability, family capacity. And those justifications are partially real. But the vehicle selection in your neighborhood isn't random. It clusters. And the clustering isn't accidental, it's social calibration. At $1,800 to $2,200 per month for a three-row luxury lease, plus insurance running $280 to $380 monthly in a metro market, you're allocating $25,000 to $31,000 annually to transportation, on an after-tax monthly cash flow of $19,500. That's between 11% and 13% of your net income on a depreciating, non-asset building, socially calibrated expenditure. The behavioral trap here isn't the vehicle. It's that you've hardwired the vehicle into your identity architecture as a corporate professional. Downgrading it doesn't feel like a financial optimization. It registers psychologically as professional retreat. That friction is the lock-in mechanism. And the lease structure makes it worse. Every 36 months, the renewal cycle resets the psychological anchor upward. You don't go back to a comparable model, you go to the next tier. Because the prior tier now feels like regression. This isn't weakness. This is precisely how the leasing industry's pricing psychology is engineered to function. The third upgrade. The network tax. The country club. The charitable gala circuit. The alumni board seat. The firm retreat you partially self-fund. These aren't discretionary, not at your level. They are relationship infrastructure. But relationship infrastructure in 2026 has a hard price floor. Conservative estimates for a fully networked executive family in a top-tier metro, $22,000 to $35,000 annually across membership dues, event spending, and the associated wardrobe, travel, and hospitality obligations that make those memberships functional. Here's the number that should stop you cold. Stack these three upgrades: the location premium, the signaling vehicle, and the network tax, and you're looking at $85,000 to $110,000 in annual after-tax spending on infrastructure that builds zero balance sheet equity. On a $230,000 after-tax income, you've already allocated between 37% and 48% of your net cash flow before housing principal, retirement contributions, or a single dollar of investable capital. This is what I call the acceptable overhead illusion, the systematic misclassification of status-driven fixed costs as responsible, professional, or family-oriented spending. The illusion is self-reinforcing because every peer in your zip code is running the same structure. Normalcy is the camouflage. And the cruelest part of this illusion is the timing. These three upgrades don't arrive simultaneously. They layer in gradually across a 5 to 8 year window, each one individually justifiable, each one socially endorsed, each one arriving precisely at the moment your income rises enough to absorb it. By the time the full overhead structure is assembled, it doesn't feel like a trap. It feels like your life. That layering sequence is not accidental. It mirrors the behavioral economics of commitment escalation. Each prior investment psychologically justifies the next. The private school tuition justifies the zip code premium. The zip code premium justifies the vehicle. The vehicle justifies the club membership that keeps you socially current with the professional tier you've now entered. Every rung of the ladder pulls you further up the overhead structure. Now here is the only fix that operates at the structural level, not the budgeting level. Stop treating lifestyle costs as personal expenses. Start analyzing them as a corporate CFO would analyze a division's overhead, through a return on capital diagnostic. Every major lifestyle commitment, school choice, vehicle, club membership gets run through one question before renewal. What is the verifiable financial, relational, or career capital return this expenditure generated in the last 12 months? Not the theoretical return. The documented one. This reframe is not about deprivation. It's about the discipline of treating your personal balance sheet with the same rigor you'd apply to a budget line in a board presentation. The executives who successfully exit the acceptable overhead illusion don't downgrade their lifestyle visibly. They restructure its composition quietly. They reallocate from high visibility, low return status costs toward low visibility, high return asset positions, private market exposure, accelerated mortgage paydown on the principal, or a funded investment vehicle that compounds outside the reach of lifestyle inflation. The neighborhood doesn't see it. The carpool line doesn't register it. But the balance sheet does. The shift isn't behavioral willpower. It's architectural. You're not fighting the urge to spend, you're redesigning the system so that capital moves into position before the baseline lifestyle overhead can absorb it. One automated transfer. One pre-committed allocation. Executed on the 1st of every month, before the lifestyle infrastructure even sees the cash. The mechanism that makes this overhead trap permanent isn't the spending itself, it's the income psychology that justifies it. And that income psychology has a direct institutional feeder, one that's been quietly engineered into your compensation structure long before you ever signed your first executive offer letter. That income trap feeds directly into what accelerates the liquidity crisis you just mapped. Click the video on your screen right now, and let's pull back the next layer to dissect how the partner promotion paradox is systematically stealing the future your current income was supposed to build.